Ollie, man, I'm really, really glad to have you on. I'm really excited. I think you're one of the more unique people we've got on the show. I've had some pastors, as I've told you, but I've not had any pastors that have managed to keep pastoring. They very frequently seem to spiral out of control in one way or another. Could you maybe give yourself a little bit of an introduction so people kind of know who you are, what you do, what you're about? And we'll go into a bit more depth than that as we go.
So basically, my name's Ollie, and I am currently pastoring Hemsworth Christian Fellowship. It's a small fellowship in West Yorkshire. I take it there are people from various countries.
More in America than anywhere, actually. So
right, okay, yeah.
Even West Yorkshire might need a location.
I was going to say, yeah.
It's in England.
So Hemsworth is a small ex-mining community in West Yorkshire, the greatest county in England. Sorry, Phil.
No, that's fine. I'm Scottish. I perfectly agree. If you'd said Britain, we'd have had to get the boxing gloves on. But
So I've been doing that for just over. I think I started in. It's a funny story, actually. Do you want the story of how I came to be a pastor?
Oh, absolutely. We were going to go into that one way or another. So let's do it.
Right. So I've been doing it for about 11 years now, just over 11 years, and. Me and a friend, when we were growing up, we used to be together in the church. We're best friends now. He was best man at my wedding, and we used to do a bit of evangelism in the church and, that kind of thing. And we both said, we'll do anything for God, but we will not be pastors. We'd seen the kind of pain that pastors go through, church splits galore and this, that, and the other. So we both said, we will never, ever be pastors. And then, cut a long story short, I was kind of, I've been in the church here since 2000 and done various bits and bobs and different jobs. I came to the church after a period of real illness and so did lots of different types of jobs, janitor and treasurer and this, that and the other. And but always, no way, never wanted to be a pastor whatsoever. And then one day, we had a couple come to visit the church and do an evening meeting, and halfway through they kind of came to see me and my wife and just said, "This is a strange word from the Lord I have for you." And I was just like, "Oh, yeah." And it has come after a period of unemployment as well, which I can talk about later. And I was just waiting for God to give me the next direction. And this person came up and said, "I just see you and your wife as a kind of king and queen dressing other kings and queens." And I thought, now bearing in mind, I've been waiting for like 7 months for God to say something to me about what next.
Right.
I thought, well, gee, thank you. That's a bit vague, isn't it?
Perfectly specific words, exactly what to do
thank you
next.
for that. Yeah, king and queen dressing other kings and queens, whatever. And so I went to bed. Anyway, I came down the next morning and Jenny was sat in the chair, which you can't see. She was sat in the chair there and having a coffee. And I just came in. And for no apparent reason, I just said, "Are you ready to start pastoring the church?" And then, "What have you just said? This is ridiculous." And anyway, about literally half an hour later, we had a phone call from the then pastor. And he said, "Oh, me and my wife would like to take you and Jenny out for a coffee. We've got something to discuss with you." And you can guess what comes. We feel it's time for us to step down. And we really feel that, Father's saying that you're the guys to take things forward.
Wow.
Well, if I hadn't had that moment of, Are you ready? I'd have said no straight away because I didn't want to do it whatsoever. And part of it was just to honour them. The previous pastor, a real spiritual father to me.
Right.
Took me through some deep stuff, healing wise. From a lot of my emotional baggage, etc. And I kind of wanted to honour him as a father and release him into whatever he wanted to do. So it wasn't my first choice of things to do.
Wow.
But I kind of just had this heart really to be a son to him and to release him into, because he'd have been trapped like I am now.
Now you know.
So that's kind of how the journey started. We said yes. And interestingly enough, if anybody says that God hasn't got a sense of humour, my inauguration, and funnily enough, the guy who I was with, who we both said we're never going to be pastors, we both ended up at different churches being inaugurated on the same day.
Wow.
April Fool's Day. 2009, April the 1st.
That's
Can't
hilarious.
Make it up, can you?
That's amazing. So what were you doing before you were a pastor?
I began life as I'd gone to university and done theology. but a kind of not a Bible college. It was Durham University in England, so it was a sort of secular theology course to call it. Whatever. Left there, went and did a spell doing working for a what do you call it, a stationer's company in Cheltenham, but didn't fit in. Square peg, round hole. And then I went to teacher training. So trained for a year, and then did RE, religious education or religious studies, with a bit of history and French tagged on. So I did that for 3 years, really loved it, enjoyed it. And then came down with a virus. Probably not dissimilar to this. It just really wiped me out. And then a week after that, I got tonsillitis. And it was like the two combined would just knock me out completely. And I got what's called chronic fatigue syndrome, or ME. And that, basically, I was wiped out for kind of 3 years and couldn't work, couldn't do anything. A lot of the time just spent in bed or on sofas. And then gradually, I had a moment of sort of freedom from that. It's funny, when you're in the middle of a long illness, you can't remember sometimes what it's like to be well. So I can't pinpoint the exact point when I started to feel better. It just began to, I had a kind of moment of being prayed for at the front of the church kind of thing. And then I just began to work in the church as a volunteer first, and then did the janitor's job, which is basically everything from cleaning toilets to doing the grounds to whatever needed doing, things like that. And then the church was given some money to run a large community project, which is really the heart of what we're about as a church. And so I began working in that, and ended up kind of as treasurer and half managing that one with a team. And then that all came to an end in 2008 when I was made redundant. The money was ended. And then I felt Father say, don't look for a job. I've got something for you. Just trust, kind of thing. Wow. So that was 30th of June. Came to an end. So first, I spent the night at church. I was a spiritual man in those days, Phil. So I said to Jenny and my wife, I said, right, I'm going to spend the whole night at church in prayer. And I fasted throughout the night, as I do most nights.
Yeah, I was going to say, I tend not to eat too much through the
night. Most of my life, I fasted every night, Phil. It's great. It's where my power comes from.
That's funny. Do you then go and break the fast at some point?
Yes. As early as I can. So I spent the night at church, and I fully expected a phone call at 8 the next morning. Ollie, we'd like you to do it.
That's got to pay off the whole night of fasting.
Nothing. Next day, nothing. Week later, nothing. Wow. Just trust me, nothing. August came and went, nothing. September, panicked, applied for a job as a teaching assistant. Would have got it, but I went to the school and it wasn't right. You know the feeling, don't you? So September, nothing. October, nothing. November, nothing. Christmas, nothing. January, nothing. And I'm just and then it was around about February, March, we had this moment of, and that was kind of how I ended up doing what I'm doing. So
you must have been pretty passionate about your faith, though, because what fascinates me is how many people say, I never want to be a pastor. I remember I'm a pastor's kid. I said that like every day of my life, everyone said, oh, you're gonna be like your dad. No, hell no. In every level, right? The bad jokes, no, I've got them now. I'm not gonna be like my dad. No way, not a pastor. But then you go to Bible college, or you go to do a theology degree. You're like a university with I'm sure 100 plus, if not more, different kind of majors you could be studying, and you're like, I know, I'll do theology. So you must have been super into your faith on some level, even though you weren't wanting to be a pastor. I'm going to spend this period of time, 3 years or whatever, studying theology. Is that fair to say? Did you grow up very passionate about your faith?
No, I was brought up a Methodist.
Okay.
Born and raised, and it was some of the best years of my life. I was in the boys' brigade, and that sense of community and being together. The faith wasn't a strong element at all.
Right.
But then when I was 15, my mum died of cancer.
Wow.
And it was quite she died, but it was quite a shock, and it just kind of, throughout that whole process, it really got me thinking, I'm going to church, I'm singing these songs, I'm doing this, that, and the other. But this is real. Kind of death is real. When you're growing up as a kid, everybody lives forever, don't they?
Yeah.
Unless they don't. And so suddenly it was a kind of, I've got to find out if this God that I'm singing about or learning about is real or not. And I've always been one of those kind of people. If it's not real, I'm not interested.
Right.
So it was a kind of period of sort of searching, reflecting, not all the time. A lot of it was drinking, smoking, doing, this, that, and the other, because I was really angry as well, really angry inside. And lost little boy for many, many years of my life, even after being saved.
Yeah.
A lost little boy completely and utterly. But that searching and the prayer all the time was, if you're real, show me. That was it. I have to know. If you're not real, I'm going to party like there's no tomorrow. I'm going to, and so that, I mean, God's always just done stuff like this with me. So, and then I had an encounter with him in a pub car park, which is part of the course for me, really. It couldn't have been in a church and I just was sitting in my mate's car. We were about to go clubbing, and he said, "Oh, I've just got to go nip to the loo." And I'm sat there again, and just that kind of question: "If you're real, show me." And I just kind of heard this. It wasn't an audible voice at all. It was just more like a picture, and I saw like a toilet being flushed like this, and I just knew that was my life, and it was literally going down this toilet. I was so angry, so lonely, all of these things, and I just heard this kind of inner voice just say, "Ollie, I just want you 100%. That was it. That was it. Ollie, I just want you 100%. And I said, "Right, you've got me." That was it. And that was the start of the journey. No, obviously I knew all the Jesus and this, that, and the other, but it was that moment of, yeah, you've got me. So I was sat in the car, threw my cigar out the window, and it was just like something came and filled me. There was some peace came, and I've been perfect ever since. It's wonderful. But that really, so from that moment, I was supposed to go and do history at university. I'd applied to Oxford and gone and done all that, and gone to the interview and not got in there. Turned out to be probably quite a good thing. And then I switched courses in the middle and told all my teachers and my dad, right, I'm going to do theology. He's an atheist professor. He was a professing atheist. So obviously that caused a lot of hassle, but I was just one of those, once something's in my head and I know it's right, and I just had this feeling, go and do that. So, and it all just worked out like that. And then got involved in a really kind of, I don't know if you ever come across them. Back in the old days, they were called Covenant Ministries, but it was harvest time before that.
Okay. It
was quite a, I'm trying to think of the term for it. It used to be known as a sort of heavy shepherding movement, quite strict rules. And Bryn Jones, Kerry Jones. I mean, I had a lot of respect for those guys and learned a load. And it just suited me where I was at, because I was all about the evangelism and all about this. And I was a nightmare, Phil.
I was going to say, like, it's not common you come across. We've all met you, but very few of us are you. Right? Very few Christians, no matter how into our faith we are, we're very reluctant evangelists most of the time. And so it's quite rare you find someone that's all about evangelism.
I wanted to be Reinhard Bonnke. That was it, that was the pinnacle. I mean, it was so embarrassing. I used to practice his voice.
Amazing.
Durham will be saved. Glory to God. I was awful. I mean, thankfully God's really patient with us, isn't it? And he knew I was not going to be like that forever. But I was, the absolute archetype, fundamentalist, anti everything apart from my little group. Everybody's wrong but us. You name it. Wow. I was a real, really passionate, like you say, hugely passionate. Looking back, obviously you look back and just think, I'd have learned so much more.
It's so hard not to cringe about your old self, isn't it? And you just think, oh God, the people that I spoke to then, could you retroactively go back in time and make them deaf? Like just block anything I said, or it's like
absolutely.
You're lying there at bed at night, you just remember one conversation and you're just like, oh, I'm gonna die. I'm so embarrassed for my past self. But the thing is, it was where you were at then, it helped you get to where you are now. And it probably helped other people get to where they need to be. Maybe some hurts and pains along the way that were maybe not as necessarily as some others. But like you said, it's kind of what you needed at the time. You clicked with this very passionate, evangelistic,
Yeah.
quite charismatic then, with like Terry
Very,
Jones
very
and these guys.
charismatic.
Yeah.
It was all, the full gifts of the Spirit, prophecies, Bible weeks, all of that, and some amazing things. Don't get me wrong,
Yeah.
but quite controlling of lives, etc. And I think I've always had that rebellious streak to me. My mum was very much like that. She was a very free thinker, radical, and she's passed a lot of that on to me, which is perhaps where I am today.
Yeah.
But at the same time, there was that bit of me that feared rejection so much that I had to be the good little boy and fit in with the like a chameleon Christian, fit in with the group. I mean, learn their language, learn their ways, and anybody who didn't, I'd always see as a bit rebellious and a bit, but secretly think, I like that.
That kind of controlling environment feeds on that. It feels like as well. It kind of it lures. I don't even mean I don't mean to say that the people at the top of that, the people in charge, leaders, are insidiously, intentionally doing that. But I just think the system that's there seems to attract people that are maybe wanting to fit in, needing to fit in, needing to be approved of or whatever, which we all do to some degree or another anyway, don't we? Never mind when you add any hurts or pains along the way that turn that up to 100% or whatever. But it does feel like I read a book recently, I can't remember what it's called, and it was about the shepherding movement, and it was about a church in Northern Ireland. I can't remember what it's called. If I remember, I might put a link to it in the show notes for people that are listening. It was really interesting, but talking about some of the dynamics of that shepherding movement of how you reported to your shepherd, and they had a shepherd, and it kind of all was it's like a multi-level marketing scheme in the church. It was really fascinating. And it just strikes me when you read through it, you go, gosh, if I was a very narcissistic, manipulative, whatever person, this would be a legit thing to get into. You could really thrive in this. And I'm sure some people are, but I know that a lot of people aren't, and that's the system they're in, and it just works that way. So you kind of like naturally found yourself kind of gravitated into this system as something
very
you could find
performance-based.
approval, and especially if it played to your strengths. You're a very big people person. If they value a lot of that, good at getting out there and speaking to people and getting people. This is where you can thrive.
I was the golden boy that was, and always kind of had to be a very, very performance-based all my life up to that point.
Wow.
I mean, through my upbringing, I had to be the best at not sport, obviously, but to go intellectually, and then you just generally bring from your childhood experiences and put those onto God. So I just assumed that God wanted me to be the best and didn't tolerate failure very well, and all of those kind of things. So you had to work hard in that system, though, and in the God system that I had in my head, I had to work very hard to please Him, and so it's like a roller coaster. Church life becomes a roller coaster. So, I've preached a good sermon and people responded to it. This is great. And then next minute, I've not read my Bible for a day or an hour, or I'm back there. So it's like this roller coaster of
highs and lows. Which, I think that's very few Christians listening to this, or people that have gone through Christianity listening to this, will not be able to kind of click with that. I think we've all kind of been through that up and down and up and down. You go to the conference, you go to the meeting, you have your big moments, or God speaks to you in your quiet time, but then you watch porn 4 hours later and you think, and it's just these ups or like whatever, the bad and the good and the bad and the good. And that's a tough dynamic, but it is like, like we're saying, like if you are a kid that grows up in that environment where your teacher needs you to perform a certain degree, or your parents do, or whatever, that can be up and down and up and down and up and down, right? You bring home a good report card and they're like, great job. So I'm so proud. Finally a son that achieves. And then 2 hours later, you idiot, what are you doing? And everything is forgotten. There's no more, any of that report card praise is gone. It's just trashed. It's like, we're starting again and you hate me. How can I climb that ladder again?
And we always remember the negative so much, don't we? So that report card where you did really well, it was great. Well, that's gone. You never remember that. But the hard words, the harsh words, the punishing words, they're the ones that seem to live forever in your head. Yeah.
No, I've done it with people that message me. I try and like screenshot their nice messages and put them in a file somewhere. Because honestly, I get loads of nice things said, and I'm sure as a pastor, you get loads of people saying nice things. You forget it. You do. It's in out one ear, maybe dawdles in the head for about an hour or so, maybe. out the other, and then one person out of 100 people saying nice things gives you one kind of crit, and it just eats at you for days.
Absolutely.
And it doesn't go anywhere. I can pull that thing up 4 years later, you know? What is that? That's some psychology screwy stuff, that right there.
Wow. Yeah, we've seen program for that, don't we, sometimes? Funny, we just did something on Sunday about that. There's sort of 3 good things. So at the end of the day, you know, just think of 3 good things, 3 things you did well, 3 things you enjoyed, and that counteracts, I suppose, you know, the one negative thought that you will dwell on before you go to bed, and everything's doom and gloom. So.
That's good. My wife does that with me a lot. We go to bed and I'm like, oh, I just feel a bit crap today. She's like, right, what are the 3 things that you liked? And I'm like, oh. What are 3 things you think are great about yourself? And it's like, the day is over. You know, I've got myself so low that I'm like, I can lose consciousness now. That is the highlight of my day. Like,
I've survived.
Yeah, exactly.
During lockdown, me and the wife, we used to celebrate just getting to lunchtime sometimes.
Jeez, I tell you.
We've made it.
The days are dragging. I think that's why I've been filming so many podcasts, just to get through, you know, just keep a few hours rolling on. So you're in this environment, you're somewhat thriving in this environment, but it's the shepherding, it's quite controlling. Did you see any of that, or were you quite blind to it in the kind of season when you were thriving in it?
Totally blind to it, really. You know, and I'd say, and it was always portrayed as the people who disagreed, were seen as rebellious, and so they were kind of almost labelled as that. Yeah. And I suppose towards the end of my time there, I perhaps I began to express opinions on things or slightly different from the leadership. So I would probably be seen as a little bit rebellious towards the end. And then there's that battle between, well, they must be right because they are the pastors, or they have to be right. And if they always portray themselves as right, there's that kind of pedestal that, and it's not intentional, like you said, you know, they're always from the best motive. And if you have a belief that you're going to be answering for the behavior of your flock at the end of the day, then
you're terrified.
It's a natural reaction.
People are going to go off the beaten narrow path.
So you will do everything to make sure they kind of stay in the confines of what your interpretation of scripture is, or your behavioral rules, or your cultural behavior. And so it's not their fault. Yeah, that's the thing.
So what started to pull you out of that? You know, as you kind of got to that end stage, what was it that kind of moved you on?
When I left university, I came to back to my hometown, and got involved in a small community church, same one that my friend was in, who's now pastoring that. Okay. And that was a lovely family church, very grace-filled, and it was a far cry, and they'd already been out of that movement for a number of years now, so they'd experienced it all, so it was a very different flavour. I'd also, and this is the funny thing, so the kind of journey to really encountering, I've just found over my life that it's those experiences of God's love that have really been the setting free things. Those, for me personally, the experience of love, unconditional love, that's really brought me to these places. And they've been, over the years, loads. But what kind of tended to happen was I'd have a real experience, but because of the environment I was in, it kind of dissipated into nothing after a bit, because I wasn't strong enough to say, hang on a minute, this experience I've just had does not weigh up with what you're telling me about God. So back in 91, I went away on an evangelism thing with YWAM to inner city Birmingham, and brilliant 2 weeks. And again, fantastic, load of us kids out on the streets of Birmingham, and I went there and glibly praying, because I was the man. Do you know what I mean? I was God's man for this hour. I was going to save Birmingham. It's quite funny when you look back, Phil, in a sad way. But when I got there, we're kind of walking around, and about the sort of first day, I was praying this prayer, and turns out to be probably the most dangerous prayer I've ever prayed. Show me what you feel about these people, Father. I want your heart. You know, I don't want to just come and tell your message. What's your heart? What do you feel about these people? I felt good about that prayer. Yeah. Anyway, about 4 or 5 nights later, it just gave me a glimpse, and we'd been out and about, and then we'd seen these lads taking some drugs, and then we came back in the van, and one of them was just literally lying in the gutter. And I don't know what it was, but I just, in that moment, I looked at this little lad lying there, and I broke. And I must have sobbed my heart out. It was like a werewolf going off, honestly. And I just didn't care what anybody thought of me. I couldn't. And I was just wailing at the top of my voice. He loves them so much. They just don't know. He loves them so much. You just don't know. He loves them so much, and they need to get saved. Otherwise, they're going to hell. It was just, he loves them so much, and they just don't know. And it was just this incredible glimpse of Father's heart for his kids. And I'm talking about not his Christian, for me, God, for his world, his people, his creations, his kids. And that was a real foundation, just tasting that incredible grace and love. Probably for the first time, really. But then going back into an environment where that isn't allowed to flourish as much.
Sure. There is the clause added. It's like, yes, he does love his kids.
Yeah.
Which are the ones who say a prayer or, the little amendment or whatever.
Yeah. But he doesn't love them enough to stop them going to hell completely. And, and all these little subtexts that over the years now, and then it sort of got back to university, and then it was back into the stream of things, and you kind of filter your experience. So same with the prophecy, isn't it? Somebody once said over my life, you're going to be an evangelist. That was what kicked me off on the Reinhard Bonnke route. And instantly you filter it through what you know, don't you?
Yeah.
So I was going to be in stadiums preaching to hundreds of thousands because that was what an evangelist did. And same with scripture, isn't it? Same with our experiences of God sometimes, or the things he says to us. We interpret them, and they come within our culture and within our circumstances and all of those things. So it's they take a lot of time to. So now I can look back and think, that's what you were trying to show me.
Yeah.
That's what you're trying to show me. And if only I'd been brave enough at that time to share that and say, well, this doesn't fit with what you're teaching me here. And what do I do about this? But I wasn't ready. It wasn't the right time.
Yeah. Well, it's so much easier to say that with hindsight, isn't it? I mean, how many situations do we do that with in life when we know that back whenever we're looking, we didn't know what was going to happen next. We didn't know how it would fit all in. And we didn't know that we didn't have to worry about that or that because it never happened.
Yeah.
It's so,
and I don't beat myself up over that, because I can go back to that moment and it can make sense now more than it did then. And I never beat myself up, but it's
well, that's good because I do. So you're at least a step ahead of me. I'm quite good at beating myself up over those things.
Over other stuff, believe you me. I'm the heavyweight champion of the world and beating myself up. So that was I think that really, so it was a foundation in that. And then coming back to my church here. And then, to be honest, a big change came. So I've been ill for sort of 3 years. And that was really, looking back, of course I prayed and I believed God could heal me, and well-meaning Christians were giving me words and, all of that, and bless them. But it was just, Father was just doing it, I think, really letting it happen to unroot, if you like, that performance-based, because I couldn't do anything. I mean, literally, and so it was kind of it was just how he did it with me. And I would never say, God, I hate it when people say, oh, God gave me an illness and this, he doesn't do that with his kids. It's just, I was so performance-based that my body had had enough. That was it. And Father could easily have said, bing, here's the magic wands, you're healed. But I wouldn't have learned anything. It wouldn't, and I'd have gone exactly back to, except this time I'd have been a healing evangelist because I've had a healing testimony.
That's it.
So it was, I look back and I'm really thankful now. Obviously at the time it was shitty.
Yeah.
And, but God always looked after us financially throughout it all, and Jenny was just unbelievably fantastic. We got married in the middle of it all. We had a child in the middle of it all, my son Toby, but it just helped loosen those roots, if you like, of performance.
Yeah.
And then another big turning point, I suppose, came for me. Just stop me if I'm waffling on.
No, this is really good. Really good stuff.
Oh, is it? Oh, great.
Yeah.
And
speaking a lot to me, because I mean, I've had chronic pain for the last 10 years. So living with chronic pain, I see that. And I was very performative driven. I still am performative dreaming.
Yeah.
God help me.
Yeah.
But it has, it's whittled at it, you know, it's caused
Yeah.
me, because you don't have the opportunity. So now you go, all right, well, right now, if my value is based on what I do, well, I'm a bit of a piece of shit right now, basically, because I can't do much. And so then you go, okay, so how do I find some value in myself? And you have to go, oh, maybe I just can have value in not doing everything the best way ever, or the most things, or and it does it. And I don't think God's given me some chronic pain.
No,
whatever that looks like, or however that works. For me, I'm just like, wow, this is an amazing opportunity that on some levels I'm taking and learning. On other levels, I'm probably completely not learning the lesson I could be learning right now. But I totally agree with you. Like that, I can definitely see that doing stuff. You know, any kind of suffering, it forces us to sit and think, doesn't it? It kind of stops you just following the same rat race, you know, and you go, whoa, what is happening, and what is important, and why am I like that, and can I be different? And that's a positive thing to come out of a really crappy thing, for sure.
It is, yeah. And sometimes, you know, like, you know, God didn't give my mum cancer, you know, but for years I believed he did, you know, and it crippled me, because I had this belief that it was like, because it was kind of my mum that was the more performance one, you know, in the family. She was the one that was driving us to succeed, etc., etc. I loved her to bits, but there was that in any best motive. She was wanting us to excel as kids. But I got it into my head, and we do this during times of crisis sometimes, don't we? I got it into my head that, because obviously I had my encounter with God after that, so I tried to then fit God into that experience, and the best way I could do it at the time was that, to make sense of her dying, was that God did it because her being alive would have stunted me spiritually and would have prevented me getting to the place where I was now. Believe it or not, that's the theology I invented, or was whispered into my ear, or whatever it might have been. And so for years I was crippled with this fear of something bad happening to Jenny and the kids. Whenever they went out in the car, I'd be nervous until they got back, and it was absolutely crippling, until he took me back to that lie that I'd believed, because I just believed the same thing, that if I'm not doing very well spiritually, or not in the place where God wanted me to be, well, he'd kill Jenny, or give her cancer, or something happened to the kids to get me to that. But it's so pernicious sometimes what we believe, the lies that can cripple us years later, that we base on, you know. So God, you know, if I believe that God gave me ME, well, 2 years from now, why wouldn't he give me something else to move me on spiritually? But the Father I've come to encounter is not like that, you know. And so anyway, that's a little side issue, a little rabbit trail. But just I've learned along the way, so many of these, it's going back over my things that I believed that just held me crippled and stopped me.
Well, and I don't think that's, I'm sure everyone's story would be unique, and everyone's different paths to believe some of these things are unique, but I don't think that's uncommon. I've come across a lot of people that have believed things like that in their faith. And like it leaves you, when you look at like things like, you know, post-traumatic stress and things like that, you go, oh yeah, like that's living with a fear of harm, a fear of death, a fear of being attacked or something like that. And you go, huh, that's a lot of people's day-to-day life with God. Is I'm living traumatized, terrified that at any moment this relationship might sour, that he might hurt me, that he might hurt a loved one, that and you go, good God, that's a very abusive relationship that people have with God.
Oh, unbelievable.
You know, if that was a person, if you had said, you know, if you, I don't know, said to a mate, oh, I'm actually really worried that Jenny thinks I'm not doing well enough and she might kill my kids to try and motivate me, they would quickly call the police, you know, or something, you know. And yet that's what some people say about God. Oh yeah, well, you know, he might do this to teach me a lesson. And people go, yes, well, he might, but let's better get that sorted, brother. Like, Jesus, what?
So what? Really, that's your opinion of God?
But that is, and when you're in that world and you've bubbled in, it's real, and there isn't, you can't even see the ludicrousness of it, in the same way that many people in an abusive relationship can't see the abusive component of it, or don't know any different, and can't therefore conceive of different.
That's it.
Wow, that's intense though, man. That's really intense.
Yeah. So it's been quite a journey, unlearning a lot of those things. And it's only when you kind of come sometimes from the outside, you can, like you've just been saying, to think, how on earth did I think that? How?
Yeah.
I won't treat my kids like that. And I always have this little mantra, really. It says, I cannot be kinder than God. I cannot be more loving. I cannot be more gracious than God. I cannot be more accepting than God. I can't be. Otherwise, move over, God, because there's a new kid in town who's... And so if I can accept a group of people, if I can love them, if I can say, you know, I forgive you, well, how much more? And there's that phrase in the Bible, how much more then will your Heavenly Father? How much more then? So I think we're finding now that, you know, a lot of time people who are not in church are often more gracious and more accepting and more loving, especially the younger generation. Like my daughter at 16, they're just so much more accepting of people who are different from them.
Yeah.
And, you know, we're seeing a lot of that in the world today, this rise of saying, you know, we want to level the playing field and to, you know, every valley, we're going to bring that up again, you know, and level it. And so she's so accepting of people. And whereas my generation was always raised not to be, you know, both sort of church-wise and we're the in-group. It's always the in-group, isn't it?
Yeah. They're always the ones making the rules, isn't it? It's weird.
Yeah, that's right. And so a lot of this journey for me, it's just, and I always say, you know, whatever your theology is or your beliefs, it's the fruit, isn't it? So if you're loving people more, if you're accepting people more, if you find yourself more gracious than you used to be, then you're on the right lines. You know, if you find yourself harder, if you find yourself more willing to condemn people or judge them or what have you, then just get a new theology, because, you know, it's not working for you, because it's horrible when you judge people and, you know, when you hate people. But if your heart's open to them, it's a much better state to be in, if you like. So anyway, what was the question?
How did I
get to that? So another big turning point came. So I was again, I was like, it's revival was my next thing then. You know, so I read all the Hebridean revival stuff and this, that, and the other, and of course it's going to happen like that. And, so I was like really passionate and again, real nightmare. I was a nightmare for any pastor because they weren't doing enough, and you know, we've got to do it. And I'd come to so I was at the church in Ackworth, and it was a lovely, lovely place. Really taught me loads of grace and accepting things like that. But it wasn't nothing really found a resting place. And you could tell me about these things, but it wasn't quite finding a resting place in me. So I'd quickly revert back to, you know, the performance mode and all that. Anyway, I went to see the pastor at Hemsworth, where we are now. Right. And he was there. And I sat down with him and said, I'm thinking of leaving the church over there. He said, why is that? So I said, well, you know, I want to see revival, and I know that what you guys have over here, you're doing stuff in the community, and it's forward thinking, and it's, you know, all this kind of thing. And I think this would suit me much more. So, all right. So just got a question for you, Ollie. Who are you? That was it. That was his. Who are you? Well, I got so mad, not openly, because I was scared stiff of him. He was an ex-terrorist from Northern Ireland.
Oh, wow.
He was a big guy and, I mean, lovely guy, but I didn't know him all that well in those days.
Yeah.
So he said, who are you? And I got so cross because I blurted out, I'm a husband, I'm a teacher, I'm a worship leader, I'm an evangelist, I'm a pastor, I've done some teaching, this, that, and the other. And they were all doing. And I just could not answer that question, who I am. I had no idea. So on the outward thing, I was the golden boy at church. Like I said, I could worship lead, preach, teach, all of that stuff. But inside, I just, you know, what's the point of all that if you're lost inside?
Yeah.
You know? And I had no idea who I was. I had no peace whatsoever, really, unless I was doing well. And so that question just started me off on this journey. I have no idea. So, and I realized that there was all this unhealed stuff from my mum dying. And so I began a journey with him of he was a trained counselor as well. Which was
wow.
Really,
that's cool.
So he took me through a lot of stuff to do with my mum, and I could just, kind of finally say goodbye to her. Never done that. So that brought some healing. And then we just began this journey, really, of, I suppose the point that Father really, my Heavenly Father, wanted me to come to was to know that I'm his little boy, to know that I'm his child. And it was a number of years. And so I did some stuff with him, and I'd kind of basically grown up schizophrenic in a way. And some people might relate to this, that because I had to be so performance orientated, and I was quite intelligent. Well, I was very intelligent. It's not a pride thing. It's just the way my brain is. But we were kind of come from a community where that wasn't prized. So when I was at school, I had a bunch of mates, so I had to try and fit in with them and be the lads. Yeah. And then I ended up going to a private school for most of my education, but we weren't rich as a family. So my parents kind of saved everything so that me and my sister could go to and get a really good education. And so I kind of didn't fit in there either. So it was this really weird world I found myself in. So again, the chameleon. And so I kind of developed over the years this kind of persona that helped me survive. And it was a bit kind of clown-like. Now, I still am. I can still be very, very silly. And I still have a real good laugh. But I don't have to now, if that makes sense. Yeah. I had to then. And that was the only way I could really survive, was to kind of... And so I developed this kind of persona, and that was what I projected to the world. That was me. So if you knew me, you could say lots of things about me, and, oh yeah, it's really funny, and it's this, that, and the other. But it wasn't me. It was all forced and all very anxious, and yet I could do the stuff. I could, and yeah, God blessed it. People were really blessed when I, did all that kind of stuff. But that's never the end game, is it? He can get a donkey to talk, basically, if he wanted. He's more concerned about this, and I was a lost little boy, really. Even though I prayed the prayer and, done all the stuff in church and all that.
How many years in are we at this point?
Years and years and years. And so after all of that, I mean, done this and preached here and led worship there, to just finally come to that point where you just think, I don't know who I am, and I'm lost. That was quite a lovely moment, a painful one. And I just did this thing with him, really. And it was the Holy Spirit taking me through it, where I just said goodbye to little Ollie, who'd helped me survive all that time. And it was like he was there, almost personified inside me. And it was almost like that was who I was presenting to Father. That was who was, when I prayed, it was like, it was this other thing that was kind of there. And so we just did this thing where I kind of let him go, gave him back to Jesus, because it was real to me, and it might sound weird to some of the viewers, but that's just my journey. It's not everybody's. Don't go rooting around in yourselves for little yous. It just worked for me. And I remember just saying goodbye, and it was quite a moment. And again, cried loads of tears. And but I was always worried about what would emerge from that. And basically, a lot of me was still the same, but just that need to, perform, and that need to was kind of not. That was the old Ollie that I'd let go of, really. And then the church got into the Toronto stuff when all that happened. Yeah. And obviously, well, we'd had it kind of way before that in the old church, and obviously I was up for that because it's the latest thing, and this is a chance for something, and obviously I rose to that, and had loads of different experiences, but it was never about that. And I think and of course, I'll laugh like a drain at anything. I'll cry. So it wasn't particularly a Toronto phenomenon. It just, I don't know what it was really. But I think the depth of what was coming out of there was the kind of the heart healing stuff, which worked really well for me, and the Father heart of God, that message and that kind of intimacy. And so those kind of values, really, about hearing God, having a personal relationship, hearing God for yourself. It's not about the performance. And then healing some of those old hurts. Yeah. Not to have a better ministry, not to be more anointed. That's sometimes how it's been done, but just because he loves me, and it's hurting me, and he doesn't want me to think that he'd give me mum cancer, because and so went through a few little courses like that, and then and had a lot of healing and a lot of tears, and it was really beneficial. And then about a week after we'd come back from one of these conferences, I had a thing for a Father Hart conference in Rochdale. Mm-hmm. And no, I've done it. I've done all the Toronto stuff. We don't need that. And it wouldn't leave me. So I ended up going there. And it was all about the Father Hart. And then it ended with a ministry where you just went out and kind of got a hug from one of the prayer people. And all they did was put their arms around you and said, Father, let my arms be your arms. Just come and hold your little boy. And it's just be a little boy if you want to experience Father's love. So I just went out to this guy and just put his arms around me. And then I just heard him, wow, not an audible voice, but one of the strongest I've heard. I don't hear voices a lot. You'll be pleased to know. And they're impressions. I say voices, and I get into trouble sometimes because half the people in the church really feeling, this is terrible. All he hears these audible voices, and all he does, No, it's just like a whisper, an impression. And but I just heard this really clearly, and just this voice saying inside me, "Oh, you're my beautiful little boy." That was it. And it was like in that moment that answer the question, who am I? And it's kind of in that moment, I think I reached the top of the tree, and I can't go any higher from that, because just knowing that I'm his beautiful little boy, even with all my crap, even with all my lostness, even with all my and that's how he sees me.
Yeah,
that's what he feels about me. Has done from before, even before he knew me, my mother's way, he knew me before I was in the form of the mother's way, and continuing into wherever. That's how he always feels about me, no matter what I'm doing, how I'm performing. And so that was a real major thing for me.
Yeah.
And I could now say, I know who I am.
Yeah.
And now you add to that, so, well, yeah, I'm his beautiful little boy. That's how he sees me. And I can discover now, well, what does that mean? I've got my own beliefs and opinions and personality and sexuality and preferences and all these kind of things. So I can now discover in more freedom than ever before,
who am I?
Who am I?
Yeah.
And love the me that he's made me.
Yeah. It's interesting because it does seem that a lot of people I talk to, and again, it might be to do with a little bit of how we all end up having a bit of a bubble, like the people that we're drawn to, the people that are drawn to us, we maybe have some similarities in it. But it feels like a lot of people, certainly within charismatic streams that kind of go through some process of radically shifting their faith, often go through that avenue, whether it's through one of the big kind of movements, Toronto, Bethel, these kind of places where they're really passionately now. Whether they've got good and bad mixtures and stuff all in there, everyone does, right? So I'm not saying that I'm not sanctioning this is the perfect place to go to get help. I'm not saying it's a bad place to go either. But it does feel a lot of people go through these movements where they're really focusing on one aspect of God is good. He's a really loving father. He's a good father. He wouldn't hurt you. He wouldn't harm you. He wouldn't give you sickness. He wouldn't do this. He wouldn't do that. Like it's all very much that God is good. He's only got good gifts for you, that kind of stuff. That feels like it's quite a stepping stone for a lot of people, like you're saying there, to suddenly go, oh, I've got a bit of freedom to explore, to ask questions to, etc. Now, it is interesting that some of these places that are very vocal on that can be some of the most vocal against what happens next for a lot of people, which is an interesting dynamic. But we don't need to necessarily go into that. But you're talking about this kind of thing of like, wow, I've got this freedom, this exploration. Did it cause you could you link that specifically to a lot of your shifts in theological belief then?
Yeah, huge. Up to that point, I think I was still what I would class as a kind of, not a fundamentalist necessarily, but a card-carrying evangelical. I would sign up to the articles of faith, etc. And it was kind of after that I really, and it's been a very sort of quiet, not a quiet journey, bit by bit, just thoughts dropping into me, and I've experienced this love, and then going back to what I felt about those kids in Birmingham. So how come I'm so anti-Muslim or anti-gay or anti? Do you know what I mean? How come it just didn't make sense anymore that the love that I was experiencing would then prepare a special place of torment for his children. Do you know? And that kind of,
it's mind blowing, is it? Once you've got a lens to see it,
yeah.
Because there's plenty of people that would be able to go, oh, well, let me explain that to you, Ollie.
Right? Yeah.
And maybe you 15 years ago would go, oh, well, Ollie, obviously this is
absolutely
how you. But once you see it, it is hard not to go. So wait, am I genuinely thinking that's love? Like, it's really hard to. Yeah.
When I do that to my kids, and like I go back to, I can't be better than God. I can't. So if I wouldn't treat my kids like that, well, how much more? And it was things like that. So it just opened this kind of, and I go.
Are you the pastor at this point? Once you've kind of been through the fall apart stuff?
No. So on the cusp, put it that way. It was almost like Father said, no, he will destroy the church if he becomes pastor, because he wanted
the opposite of the Apostle Peter. It's like on you I will build my church.
Yeah.
On Ollie I will destroy.
I will destroy, and many people in the process.
That's funny.
Oh dear. Yeah, and so it just, and I think it was, bizarrely enough, I think it was after I became pastor that I kind of got even more freedom. I don't know. It's all a bit hazy. Too much Jim Beamans. No.
And voices in your head.
And following that, it was just like little pieces of the jigsaw began to fit into place.
Yeah.
And they were all, I've never been a big, I don't read books. I went through all that in the early stage. So I'd read Reinhard Bonnke, I'd read the Hebridean Revival, I'd read all of these, and it was kind of, this isn't me. I'd be churning out somebody else's thoughts, and there's nothing wrong with other people's. Like, you learn from them, and I'm not. But in all of this, I've never, apart from The Shack, that was quite a seminal book and film, love it. And apart from that, I've not read, beginning to end, any complete book on deconstructing or all of these. I've got snippets from people. I learn a load from Martin Fell, who you had on.
Yeah.
I mean, he's just awesome, is Martin. Some of the stuff he gets, and some of the stuff's like, whoa, over my head, and not where I'm at, and I might be next year. Brill. But I love him, and that's what it's, for me, it's about. It's not about whether I agree with him. Can I respect him and love him? And and each one in the church, so we can come on to church a bit later, but so I've almost purposely not, and it doesn't sit with me anyway, reading loads of theological books. So a lot of it's just been kind of, I think, God dropping thoughts into me.
Yeah. I
mean, I joined a Facebook thing called the Online Posse of Spiritual Misfits, and that's been brilliant because people just post little bits and bobs and their thoughts and etc. And again, it's just odd, and I've always found this is how God speaks to me, really. I'll be watching a film, and there's just one line in that film that just goes, and I might start crying, and you just know there's something about this moment in this film, or somebody just say something off the cuff at church. It's like, it sets me off on a rabbit trail of thought then, and that's how he does it, really. So I do the investigating myself, not like that. So, and somebody just put, I'm sure it was on that Posse of Online Spiritual Misfits. And I never read the article, but it just said, who's more powerful, Adam or Christ? What? And I never even considered that before at all. It was always, Jesus has paid the price for sin, and if you, and then suddenly I was on this rabbit trail of, so Adam, according to Scripture, Adam's sin condemned the whole world, and all were brought under sin. But Jesus' ability is only through those who believe in him or say the right prayer or have actually heard of him in the first place. Well, that makes Adam much more powerful. His power to condemn is more powerful than Jesus to save. Yeah. So actually, we should be like honouring Adam, shouldn't we? And and it was just little thoughts like that, and then you think, oh, shouldn't think like that. Yeah. And then you kind of go down that, and it grows in you, and then you perhaps come across somebody, I used to think, and at first he was very lonely. Yeah. There was, because I think we hadn't known Martin and Kathy perhaps during this. Yeah, we had actually. We'd known them for a while, but we hadn't been going into it as deep with them on that journey. in terms of the theology and all of that. So there were bits and bobs. But there was a lady in the church, and I won't mention her name, but she, back in the 70s, had agoraphobia. And for about 2 years, couldn't go out. 2 or 3 years, couldn't go out. And then she had an incredible encounter with God. And in her words, he stood at the foot of my bed. And it was talking to her like I'm talking to you now. And basically, so all this stuff about the Father heart of God is unconditional love. And, all this, the old stuff that we're deconstructing now, that's what God told her back in 1970s that he was going to do. And so she was so excited to hear the journey that I'm on, because she was
she's like, frickin' heck, Ollie, I've been waiting 30 years for you.
yeah. And she said, she struggled in church because she had this encounter with God who told her all these things.
I bet.
Wasn't weighing up with, and she felt so alone.
Yeah.
I'm just glad that he's doing it with me at a time when it's more open to.
Yeah. Well, you have Facebook
like
at least, or you can listen to a podcast or something. But
and you realise that other people around the world, that this is happening to. So
wow.
So it's just been this journey. So little things like that, where somebody will write something, and then just thoughts drop into you. So I think I just read somewhere, I can't remember where it was, about when John put, when I am lifted up, I will draw all men to myself. And you miss those words, don't you? All men. And the filter is all means those, the in-group.
Yeah, some.
I will lift all those brackets who have accepted me as,
Yeah.
And then you're like, well, no, it says all. And then you look at this as well, I will drag all men to myself. So I'm reading that, and I have this image, if you like, this kind of, I'm going to say vision because it makes me sound great. I have this vision, Phil. I just have this image of like the cross being like a black hole. And from that moment, I began to call it irresistible grace, irresistible love. So anybody who comes to me and says, yes, but everybody has free will. Yes, they have the right to refuse. I can say, yeah, that's true. But I don't think anybody will have that ability. When you're faced with the love of all loves, when you stand face to face with this black hole of irresistible grace, I think technically you have the right to say, nah, I don't want that. But when you come face to face with what you've been longing for and missing all your life, true love, and it's there in front of you, I would shake the hand of the person that has said, do you know what, now that's not for me.
Yeah,
I'd rather live without love. Thank you. So technically, I guess it is true, but so it's little things like that just little moments like that, and it just becomes a foundation for me then.
Yeah.
And of course, people can argue, oh, but it says in Scripture this and it says in Scripture that. But no, I feel Father said that to me personally, and I had this little moment of the cross being like a black hole, just literally dragging. It's irresistible. You can't run out of a black hole, and so you just go down these little rabbit trails, and and it might be wrong, but I'm not bothered. It makes me more gracious and more loving. So
so
I like that.
Talk me through the process, because you're on it sounds like in this journey you've kind of had this experience of like God is this loving Father, I'm his adored child, and now you're starting to go, oh wow, he must love everyone, even these Muslims, even these gay people, like different bits of your theology are kind of like you're kind of poking at a few holes and bits are crumbling.
Crumbling.
But as a pastor, which at some point along this journey, as it's picking up speed, you then kind of inherit a church. You are now in charge. You're a leader. People are looking at you to tell them, who is God? What's he like? What are we supposed to be? Whether right or wrong, or whether that's the model of what a pastor should be or a church or whatever, people are looking at you going, all right, Ollie, you tell us, what does this Bible say about this? Or, and sometimes it's a trick situation as well, because they know what the Bible says and they're just seeing it. But how did you navigate, like you're talking about how lonely that can be. In my experience of working with different people, some of the people I have the most empathy and heartbreak for is not people that are going through this alone, that are the everyday person in church, because in some levels, some areas, they've got a lot more freedom. Now, I'm not saying it's easy. I've talked to far too many people to know it's bloody hard, whoever does it. But as a pastor, you don't have the same freedoms, in that if you're caught out, even if you even have a private conversation with someone and it gets out, you could be on the chopping block with no food. You could be back in the unemployed category again. Or whatever, you know, or maybe, you know, you are left going, oh, I need to talk about this at Easter, but I'm not sure that's how the cross works. And can I talk about how I think the cross works? Or is that going to be problematic for, are people then going to get upset? And also sometimes it's not even the most healthy thing. For some people aren't ready for certain things. How are you've got all this, I imagine, because you're a smart guy, so you're probably living in your head a little bit with some of these things and thinking out the conclusions of how will that play out and what will happen if I do that. How are you juggling all that in your head as you go up on a Sunday morning to preach, or as you're visiting the sick, or whatever it looks like? What's going on, and how are you navigating your own personal deconstruction of different parts of your faith with being an ambassador for that faith?
With great trepidation, great difficulty, and not getting it right most of the time. No, for me, there's always, when you come into something new, it's like the new wineskin and the new wine. You can't fit something new into an old way of doing things. So the way we do church is very different from the old model. So I'm a passionate believer that we can all have a relationship with God. We can all hear his voice. And by that, I don't mean audible voices. I mean, you know, read the scripture and, oh, that stands out to me. Oh, that verse is, I've got a song going around in my head. I was looking at the birds and just thinking, wow, you know, what a chorus. And then Father reminded me, he's singing over, things like that. I'm a real passionate believer that in freeing people not to have a second-hand faith based on me or anybody else. And so kind of, that's always been the heart of who we are as a church. So it's very interactive. Obviously not at the moment because we're all in lockdown, so all they get is me Facebook Live on a Sunday morning spouting away. So the kind of, we all learn from each other. That's what I'm saying. And one of the things is I have to pull myself up on a lot that I can still learn from a fundamentalist. I can still learn from an evangelical. You know, I'm at this place on my journey, but I haven't got it all together. You know, I haven't got it all right. There is no, it's just where we're all at, and we're all at such different places. So I just encourage people to share what they feel Father's saying to them, or what, you know, have you had an experience or a testimony this week, or what, and it could be from the scriptures, it could be from a film they've watched, it could be anything. And so we learn from each other. And generally I've found, although we're all at very different stages, that the constant message that comes through is one of encouragement and love and all of those things. So I think, yes, the Holy Spirit is just doing these things through everybody and bringing things out without me actually having to do a lot of quote unquote teaching. And now people who are struggling, I mean, Martin's absolutely fantastic at working with people who are struggling because they've been brought up in that evangelical background, and who are struggling with, and I really realise that I'm a bit more gung-ho about it, but I realise that there are lots of people who struggle because they've been taught the scripture is almost higher than the Holy Spirit, you know, and if it's not in scripture, it's not valid, or their particular interpretation of scripture is the only one, then it is a struggle to overcome that. And Martin is just great at helping people through that. Now, a lot of people don't want to be helped and just like a good old fight with him. Bless you, Martin. That's not my bag.
Seen them plenty online.
You've seen that. But in terms of people who are genuinely inquiring, then you know, someone like Martin's really great, and he's done a lot of the reading and research, and he can point to various things, and that's fantastic. The church that we've got at the moment, it is the most, do you know, and this, I love it. I love pastoring, Phil, because we have got the most amazing, I'm going to say, I'll be a bit tearful now. Sorry.
It's okay.
But we've just got the most amazing bunch of people. Such a variety of backgrounds. I mean, we've got, I won't mention names, you know, if they ever watch this, they'll know that, but we've got ex-addicts who struggled through life, and one guy at the start of this just phoned me up and said, "I've got a testimony to bring." He said, "I was down the local park," he said, "and I was just really depressed and really something, and then suddenly I just found myself crying and laughing, and he said, 'God is just love, isn't he?'" And I was just like, yes. And then we've got a young woman who joined us from a traveller background. I mean, sent out shoplifting from the age of 5, heroin addict from the age of 11 to 35. She's been in prison. She's run a brothel in Middlesbrough for the upper echelons of society.
Wow.
Why my hair isn't curly, I don't know. But she's got a heart of gold. She's had an encounter with God, and she loves people. She wants to help people, and so there's that. And then we were recently joined by an older couple, and they've come. They were pastoring an evangelical church in a local town, which had to close for financial reasons. It was growing small. When they first turned up and explained who they were, my heart sank. It just, Phil, I know, I'm ashamed to admit it, but it just sank, and because I just thought, oh no, there's somebody else I'm going to offend here, and I always say to people, look, when you come to us, you'll either love us or hate us. You'll either think, oh yeah, there's something here, or you'll just hate what we're about. And I'm not bothered by that, Bless you to find somewhere where fits you more, but the journey we're on, this is kind of what we're at. And I said to everybody, I said, we won't see them again. Anyway, they came back the next week, and yes, they've got different beliefs from me, but you know what, Phil, I love them to bits, and I think they love me. They're wonderful.
They have to on some level, right? I think in some level there's evidence of whatever it is you're doing works, where I mean, I've seen people that have pastored a church for 20, 30 years come out and say, hey, I've been going through some stuff. I've been thinking about a theology on, and they'll pick one topic, like maybe I'm not sure I believe in a total eternal conscious torment or whatever. Maybe I think I'm more of an annihilationist. They don't even go to universalism. They're just like annihilation. And it's like, okay, you're no longer our pastor and we never want to talk to you. And you're like, dude, you've been like the pastor for 30 years. Everyone loves you. And that was it. That they're done. And so there's, on some level, I think, and obviously you don't have 30 years of I don't know, broken betrayal or trust, or I don't know, however people engage with these kind of topics. And I know there's a lot to it in that. But like when someone comes along and goes, oh, I believe radically different from him. I kind of tick most of the boxes on evangelical faith. But there's something about this community, or there's something about that guy, Ollie, or there's something about some of these other people that I'm meeting and talking with, that I'd like to just be around this community. And it's not important for a Christian, especially an evangelical Christian, to go, actually, the beliefs aren't as important. That's a big hurdle to have been able to overcome, I think. It's huge. And I've noticed, I mean, I've been to your fellowship a few times and been able to facilitate discussions, as well as probably more than most people, that I don't tend to do talks very often. If I can avoid it, I'll try and facilitate a conversation. I have found that you're a community that thrives on it. It really does. It really loves to engage, and everyone seems to engage. And but that in and of itself can be problematic for a lot of people. So, a lot of people don't want to have to be seen. A lot of people don't want to have to be a part of a community that everyone's sharing, and people are sharing things that make them feel uncomfortable. It's quite uncomfortable, isn't it? Hearing an opinion that's very different to yours. When the opinion is, will I get to go to heaven or not? Or something very big, like that's a big topic, or am I saved or not? Depending on what people believe, you're like, oh, you're really causing me to have a bit of an existential crisis. Like that's, it's a hard thing to navigate. I mean, in our local church here in Sale that we were a part of for a long time, I worked really hard to introduce more discussion-based meetings and things, and that went really well for a lot of people. But for a lot of people, it ended up being their least favorite week of the month. They were really, they would dread. Some didn't come anymore. They stopped coming that week of the month, or third week of the month or whatever. We're going to have a discussion because some of the things that people said in the discussion, they'd rather they didn't know what that person believed, because you are scaring me. And so did you have some of those dynamics? Because you're not just going in and planting a church with this idea, hey, we're going to do this and that's it, and if it's for you, it's for you, if it's not for you, it's not for you. I imagine some of the people that were there initially were going, well, this isn't for me, so what the hell's happening? Did that go down?
It just kind of, I think because it wasn't right, this is what I've never said, this is what we are all going to believe now. I've really been passionate. And I always stand at the front and say, look, I'm going to say some things today. And I do it on a Sunday morning. I just say, it's okay for you not to agree with me. This is where I'm at. I'm just sharing the thing. And I'm not sharing. I very rarely go down there. This is what the Bible says, because, well, does it? In terms of, I'll just share and say, this is what I feel Father's been sharing with me this week. And if it finds a resting place in you, and that was kind of how it's been with me, then great. If not, that's okay.
Yeah.
And so it's not, we don't, and that's, we don't kind of have that kind of discussion necessarily. It's more just people sharing what they feel Father's saying in the moment for us all. So we don't have a set of beliefs as a church. I don't say to people, well, if you come to us, this is what we stand for. We stand for, universal reconciliation. We stand for no deconstructed. You'll soon pick that up probably.
Sure.
In the flavour of what's shared. And if you share something like that, like, I think we all need to be praying for the lost because they're all going to hell, it'll just kind of ease off. And if I'm leading the meeting and somebody says something like that,
fall flat,
I'm like, yeah, that's it. I'll just say, thank you for sharing that, and if anybody, if that resonates with anybody, get together with him afterwards, and perhaps, because everybody's at different places, and it is, so it can be hard to manage, because some people come with some real off the wall stuff, but that's part of this rich tapestry of church that I call it. Yeah. And most people, I think, when you chat to them, then either church or not in church, baseline, people are not looking for new belief systems. They're looking for acceptance and love. And if they can find a community like that, and I never just class those who come on a Sunday as the church. It's kind of, we have all different lunch clubs and many of them, so it's just, in fact, the old Church of England idea where the whole community was your parish. Sure. So it wasn't like, right, you come on a Sunday, so you're our flock. They used to see the whole, they'd have boundaries, wouldn't they? And so you see that. So, and that's part of that journey that I've been on. It's set me free, really, to see myself, to be able to love whoever, in the community as well. And there's certain ones that do come to us and come to the various groups. And I treat them none the different. Just meet them where they're at. I think that's what Jesus did. He knew what they could take. He knew what they were able to handle at that moment in time, to move them on a little bit. So like for the disciples, he didn't blast on a lot about the Gentiles, did he, when he was on earth with them?
Yeah.
Because they wouldn't have been able to, it was enough that he was picking corn on the Sabbath, for goodness sake, Yeah. Let's leave the Gentiles aside for a moment.
I'll give Peter a vision later on, don't worry.
Yeah, he'll take it later. Yeah. So sometimes you just have to trust that
funny.
The Father's taking us all on this journey together, all at, many different stages, and to help those that are struggling. But like I said, most come along on us, and they're wanting love and acceptance in a community to, just to grow and feel safe. I think that's a really important thing. What's always been my heart, that, and having been a teacher and a governor at the local primary school, I've always realized kids grow healthily when they feel loved and safe. And that's not rocket science. That's not biblical. That's psychological. It just is a fact. Yeah. And so if you can create, I've always had this, if you create an environment where people feel safe and loved, no matter what they say, so even if you come out with and it's okay to voice what you think God is saying to you, you're not going to find yourself say, well, that was a load of rubbish and we don't believe that here. Well, instantly, they'll not share anything again. So an atmosphere of, and I always remember it, that struck me reading ages ago when I was into revivals about the Azusa Street revival, the Pentecostal.
Right, yeah.
In 1905, was it? Or 4, one of those two. And they got a lot of criticism. I think Bill Thomas got a lot of criticism because there were weird stuff going on, fleshly stuff, undoctrinal stuff. And Bill Thomas, a very gracious man, he just said, he said, well, I'm not going to stop those things. He said, I'll just because if you try and cut the, whatever it is, let the wheat grow with the chaff or whatever it was. If I try and cut the chaff out, and I think it's the chaff. Well, I risk cutting all the weeds out, all the wheat as well. So he just kind of let things go. What is of the Holy Spirit will stay, and what isn't, and is just man's ideas, will fall to the ground. And I like that attitude, really, that, yeah, people share some weird stuff. I'll share some weird stuff. I'll share some stuff on a Sunday morning, and perhaps 70% of it might be really from God. 30% is just me. And I just trust that bit will not, and I say that to people, look, you'll know if this is from God because you'll kind of feel it. There'll be an energy about it. It'll find a resting place. And if it doesn't, well, just ignore it. And it's me waffling. Yeah. And it's like, when you share, it just does something to me, and I know that that's coming from God. And you kind of feel it inside, and it just brings, there's life about it. And that's what I say to people. So anybody that shares something, if it's not really what God's really wanting to say to us as a church or to an individual in it, it won't be death, but it won't have that life about it. But the things that come from his heart, they just have a kind of life of their own, and it'll energize you and, maybe make you laugh or cry or just think a bit more, but in a positive way, not a,
yeah.
So, but don't get it all right. And we've had people who it's been too much for, I think. And they're always the sad bits for me. So obviously I don't name names, and I can probably handle things better than I have done.
Yeah. Well, it's probably very good that you did get a lot of that performative stuff broken out of you, because that isn't, I think that's a thing that I find in a lot of pastors is they can't cope with someone sitting down going, hey, I actually really like this church, but I just don't see things the same way, and I think I'm going to move on to another church. And they'll go, why would you ever attack me on such a fundamental, how do you hate me so much? And it's like, whoa, where did you get this? Do you know what I mean? It's that thing of like, this thing is like my performance, my validation, my whatever. And I feel attacked right now. You probably, it was good that you kind of ticked that off, because I can imagine those kind of conversations at least being like, hey, Ollie, not on the same page. And I really like this, but I think I need something different, or, that feels it feels like a much more healthy way. One of my earliest pastors, I really, not so early that it was my dad's, because I was a pastor's kid, but one of my first pastors beyond that was from a Brethren background. I was in a Brethren church, and I was like charismatic, and I was like exploring all sorts of different things. And I sat down with him, and I was like, hey, I kind of want to talk. And he's like, I kind of know what you're going to say, Phil. He's like, we love having you around, because I love being around. And he's like, and I want you to be around as much as you can be. But he's like, I understand that you want to explore some stuff that you can't explore here. And he's like, you can do both. You can do neither, whatever you need for you to grow. He's like, my day in, day out is not based on what you do in your life. I want it still to be your friend. I still want you to be around as much as you feel comfortable and you think it will benefit you. But you got to do what helps you. And I was like, geez, like he was quite a young pastor. Like, looking back, he was ancient, but I think he was like about 36 or something, he's about my age now. And I was like, and I think it was his first senior kind of pastor position. And looking back, I'm like, God, that was remarkable. Having experienced a lot of very different interactions with pastors since. Because that was one of my first kind of proper altercation. It wasn't an altercation at all, but a difference. And I was just like, gosh, that's the way to do it. And it feels like there should be room in the myriads of expressions of what Christianity looked like for people to be healthy enough to have that.
Yeah, sure.
And yet the stories that I hear suggest that is not the common expression. I don't know if you've had refugees come to you with stories as well. It's really interesting. Do you think what you're doing, so I look at what you're doing and I look at the way you're doing it, and I hear the stories of countless people coming out of their expression of church where they've come from for a myriad of reasons. Some of them have no interest in going back into church. The vast majority, though, are looking for community at the very least and miss that component of church. I look at what you're doing and I go, this is the answer. This, like I look at, I hate churches, if I'm honest. I don't hate buildings. I don't hate pastors. I just don't enjoy sitting in a service, listen. I'm not a big music guy, so listening to music or trying to engage in music, which isn't something I particularly do, unless it's Hamilton. Gosh,
love it. We've just watched that recently.
So good.
So
good. Unless you're doing Hamilton up on the next time I come visit, Ollie, I want a full rendition.
Okay.
But like, it's not how I engage much. And then hearing a sermon, but I'm like, I listen to like, probably 20 messages a week sometimes. I listen to podcasts and messages, or I'm reading books. I'm like, I don't need a more thing. Like, I'm there to connect with people.
Relationship,
but other people are there for the message. Other people, and I feel like having communities that go, look, we are open to people that are different. You can be who you are. You can engage with what you want to engage with. You can not engage with certain things, and that's fine. To me, that feels like the future when you're looking at people that are radically questioning a lot of things. The fastest growing movement in spirituality is people that are deconstructing their faith. And so if we're going to make communities for those people, which I think there needs to be one way or another, whether the church is that community or not, maybe we make communities outside the church, I don't know. But I definitely see communities like yours. It draws people in. Our good friends, Paul and Steph, he won't mind me. He moved across the country just to go to your church.
No pressure.
Seriously, like that first Sunday service, what were you thinking? You're like, this is gonna be a good one. Martin talks about his how much it's impacted him having a community that he can be a part of. And so I think, to me, this is the model. This is what the church needs to be moving into as we see the church dwindling. Do you see yourselves as that? Do you see yourselves as kind of pioneers, or are you just doing your thing? Or like,
you know what, Phil? Honestly, we just initially got on and done it. And I've always been a passionate, but I hate clones of anything. I've always been fairly unique as a Christian, as a pastor. And the church, I don't like clones of churches where you go in and all you get, you could wake up in the middle of a church service and think, all right, this is what no names mentioned, but you know what I mean? And you're going to get kind of the same. And I know we're religious as well, so we always start with coffee, which has gone from a sort of half hour to an hour, and then the service gets later and later and later because people love being together. That's the thing. And the service is not the be all and end all. It isn't. Being together and then listening to God together and sharing life together is, in whatever form that takes. And so we just got on and did our own thing. And I think, obviously, it's shaped a bit by me, because as the leader, you do kind of tend to shape how things go. I'm aware of that. And it kind of works for us. We never set out to do it in a certain way, but it just, as we went along, it was just like you said, things like singing 5 songs or what have you. But it's lovely. I love singing. I've got a fairly all right singing voice. I like belting them out. But there just came a point where I was just thinking, we're just doing this because we always have. And I just got tired of it. And I realised other people might have got tired. And so it's... so we never went out to... So we will sing, because some people still love singing.
Yeah, of course.
And I'm not in that boat of I've got to try and please all the people all the time. It's literally, if you feel it's right to have a Sunday morning where we just sing, we'll do that. If it's just where we just have coffee together, do that. And that's about sort of, I suppose, being led by the Holy Spirit rather than having a set way of doing it. It helps having a set way of doing things. It's a lot easier. But if you're encouraging people to share, you have no idea. But it's like this conversation. I had no idea where it's going.
Yeah.
To me, this is life-giving. I love it.
Yeah.
I hope you're loving it. If not, don't bother putting it on anywhere. But you know what I mean? And so this is the honest truth. Quite often on a Sunday morning, I dread going. I've said that to Jenny, and I'll say it openly, and I'll just stand there and just say, I'm just not feeling this right now. I just think I can't face another Sunday service. Perhaps it's the responsibility. Perhaps it's sometimes I get to that mode where I think, I've got to churn. I've got to hear God this week. I've got to produce something that everybody's expecting of it. Now, nobody does. It's in my head.
Yeah.
And then I'll go, and then people will share this and people will share that. And I go away just, this is the best job. This is the best place I could ever, this is the best church. I just absolutely love it.
Wish you didn't have to wait 7 more days for that. Another
exactly.
One
and the next Sunday I'll be exactly the same. It's church again. you know what I mean? And it does energize me, being with people and them all sharing and doing that. We never set out to do that. So are we pioneers? We're certainly unique. And it certainly scratches where a lot of people are beginning to itch or have been itching for a while, just to go and find a place where you can express yourself and not be condemned. It's okay to have different beliefs. It's okay to not be perfect. It's okay to... And for me as a pastor, that's brilliant, because I can stand up on a Sunday morning saying, I've just had enough. Yeah. Can you pray for me? Or, I'm just really struggling this week. And no one bats an eyelid, because I'm not up here. Yeah. And I ain't. They all know me. They know my faults, my failings, all of that. And I try and, wear my heart on my sleeve as far as possible. Yeah. And that's the wonderful thing about being there, is that as much as I try and accept people there, wherever they accept me as well. Yeah. And that's quite rare, actually, to find that place where you can just be. And I am a bit weird. I can be silly. I can go over the top. A number of times Jenny will just look at me and, you're going too far again. and I'll know I am, and I can't stop, and I'll just
That's why going. I don't bring Tilly with me when I come to your church. I don't want that knowing look of like Phil reining in.
You've done it now. But to be accepted, it's what we all want, isn't it? Yeah. And I don't mind what people share. No one's going out to hurt each other. Yeah. I suppose that the things I really struggle with, it would be the fundamental. If we had, and we've had people like that come, and they don't stay, because they do get really offended by what we're all about. And I will explain. So I'll just say, this is kind of where we're at. So perhaps it is and it's not just the Sunday meeting, So we have one of my favourite meetings all week is the Bible study, and I just love it, because I do love, and it's not an intellectual study of it. It is let's take this passage and. Right, what's standing out to us as we read it, and we have, like I said, it's such a diverse church, but it's a small Bible study, and we have this ex-evangelical pastor and his wife, and I've got him to lead it now, because he's fantastic, and he brings a wealth of knowledge to the text and experience that I haven't got, and so I can bring my thoughts and feelings, but he brings this depth and a good hand, and they'll be different on different levels, some beliefs, but. It's really life-giving, and I'm energized by that. So
that's awesome.
It's just, and then we have coffee groups, and we have going to the pub groups, and guys getting together to watch football together groups, and just doing life together, but with that common thing of, God doing it with us together and learning together and helping each other through the struggles. And I think that's what's brought this, churches in this. Well, I don't know what other churches particularly are doing, but you just got the sense that pastors were really anxious about the service being gone, or the tithe not being there. I spent more time to just try and stop people giving. No, look after your own families. How do we set up a bank account? Don't just, and they insist on that. But the whole thing of the service is the high point, and I get that but it's not where we're at. I get for the Catholics, the Mass is the high point because of what they believe. Yeah. If I believe that literally turned into the body and blood of Jesus, I would be gutted not to have it every day. So I understand it completely, and I respect that. And a lot of me wishes I could believe that. It would be awesome. Yeah. It would be awesome to think, to have that absolute conviction that you are literally consuming and it turned that inside you. That would be amazing. But I haven't. Yeah. And I can't help where I'm at. Yeah. And so I get that. I get those that need the church service. But for our folks, what they've missed is the fellowship, the community.
Yeah. No, and it comes across. It really comes across.
And it's so lovely. So at the beginning, but just at the beginning of it all, I was going around like a blue-bottomed fly, setting this up and making sure they're all right. Have you got the shopping? And, being the perfect pastor and, all of this. And I wanted to do it as well. But it was like, and I was like, messaging people and everything okay, and general text and this, that, and the other. And I'm like, oh, yeah. Anyway, then I'd go and visit somebody on my bike once we were allowed out for our exercise, and I'd call on this old couple. Oh, yes, I've had some lovely texts this week off so-and-so and so-and-so. And I realised that everybody in the church was like messaging each other and encouraging each other and going to visit each other when they were allowed. That's awesome. It was just, I was just like, oh, It shouldn't work, but it does.
Yeah.
You
No,
know,
that's
it's that
really
feeling
good.
of, we've got everything from a sort of 80-year-old agnostic-y, atheistic guy who comes because he just loves being with us.
Yeah.
But he doesn't get most of what he'll regularly tell me. He says, I disagree all the time with what you say on a Sunday, but that's okay, isn't it? Of course it is, you know.
Awesome.
To the traveller girl, to that, you know, and it shouldn't work.
Yeah.
But, you know, it does.
Yeah. It's interesting. And forgive me, I'm a bit ignorant on your church structure or how you're affiliated. Are you affiliated with a larger denomination, or are you like a part of I'm assuming not part of the Evangelical Alliance? Or
no, we kind of,
because like you're talking about, you know, like, oh, we've got atheists, we've got this person that's evangelical, we've got this here. We're kind of like openly universalistic, but other people will not believe that in the church. It's quite all over the place. I can imagine I'd struggle if I went onto your website and went to the you know, what we believe section. All the websites have, like, yours would not be the usual list if you had one. Like, do you have a look? This is what we're about. Like, you're welcome here, but ultimately, this is who we are. Or do you kind of go, like,
no,
we're not even.
We
that.
don't know that.
Like, that's
Come and I always remember going to a Bible week way back in the day. It was called Grapevine in England, based in Lincoln. I had some really great times there, and a guy called Gerald Coates was speaking.
Okay, yeah, I know.
You remember Gerald Coates? Yeah, and I had a lot of time for him. And he was again quite a radical, quite a outside the box thinker. So I kind of warmed him. But he always said one thing that struck me even way back in the day. He said, we've got it all wrong as a church. He said, we've always told you, if you believe what we believe and behave in the way that we want you to behave, you can belong to us. That's always been the kind of subversive message of the church. If you accept our beliefs, behave in the way we expect you to behave, then you can belong to us. And he said, it's got to be the other way around. Just come and belong to us. And once you feel safe and belonging, then you can explore your beliefs in that safe environment. And if God wants, you know, there's some behavior that's hurting you or hurting others, then that'll kind of, as you feel loved, the need for, I'm a real believer that it's kind of, most of our behaviors, it's kind of that absence of love from either, you know, childhood or presently or what have you. And if we feel loved and safe and accepted, then behavior just kind of follows on. And some of the behaviors that we used to condemn, I don't think God's that bothered about anyway. You know? So that thing of helping people to feel loved and safe and accepted by God, that's the constant message, if you like, from the front. Less than the theology. We'll do the theology at time, and I will drop it in my journey and etc. But that would come more in the, you know, the smaller group settings, and we'll chat about those things. But
more relational.
More relationally based than me standing at the front and saying, well, this is what, you know. Because for me, it's more important that people know they're loved, accepted, safe. Now, theology comes into that, because if you come from that place of, if I put a foot wrong, I'm going to burn in hell, or if I, you know, God's going to give me a disease if I'm not performing well, then obviously you need to address those. But sometimes that's better on a one-on-one thing, you know, not a counselling thing, but just hey, you know, you're really anxious about that. Where do you think that's come from? You know, and possibly is a faulty belief that they've got, or I call it an unhelpful belief. So just that constant message of love and acceptance and grace. It's funny, that extreme grace thing, I used to rail against that completely, and really bought into the, you know, it's just absolute nonsense, this extreme grace thing. There has to be repentance, there has to be, you know, all of this, and it's cheap grace, this extreme grace. Until I had a really powerful God experience, then I kind of knew what it was all about then, and which I could tell you, but it would. So really how do we get to there from the edge? So we were affiliated to, you know, so then things like that, I just said, right, this is the path we're on. It's an unknown path, and I don't know where it leads, but I'm kind of happy on that. And that was what we always said to the church. We heard a prophecy many, many years ago that God was going to, there were two paths opening up to the church, and one was the unknown path, a bit like, what's his name? Is it Frost? Going through the wood, take the path less travelled. And the other one was the known path. And he'll be on both legs, you know. God has not left the church. You know, he's there. But he's on the unknown path, and that's kind of the path that he's led me down and therefore people who are with me
Yeah.
on this journey. And it is an unknown path. We don't know where it's going, but so the affiliations we have, so we don't fit anywhere, and that's the thing. I found
that's
the
what I'm
loneliness
wondering.
was,
Because it's not just a lonely path for an individual deconstruction, but I imagine as a church that kind of on some level is exploring new ideas, or not being at least willing to go, whoa, yeah, we'll tick these boxes so that we fall into at least this broader group. Or like, I mean, just simple things like if you want to get funding for a food bank, well, actually that's going to go through this group of churches together, or this or that, or whatever. Like, you have to fit in sometimes to fit in. And so I can imagine it might be quite lonely. That was my first thought in asking that question of like, that it seems like a very tight-knit group, and I know from my experience it's a very tight-knit group, the church, that we can be very big on unity, but we can turn on individuals and even other churches, and that was I guess my wonder of like, do you find yourself, because I know other pastors are going to listen to this, especially if probably going to title this the pastor that's deconstructed and is still a pastor or something like that. I'll probably come up with something
against all the odds.
Maybe you should come up with a wittier title for me. But I can imagine a lot of pastors, because I speak to a lot of pastors that are deconstructing, and most of them are going, well, I guess there's no future for me, because I'm not going to be able to still do this thing that I love. I'm going to have to go and, God, who knows, become an accountant or retrain for something or whatever. But I think it should almost come with a cursory warning of like, yes, there is an option on the other side, but it's going to be
costs,
tough on some level. I can't imagine you're best friends with the Baptist, Methodist, Charismatics, all these other ones that kind of largely tick most of the boxes and are looking for people to tick.
Yeah. Do you know what? It's funny because we kind of are. And what stopped me in the past was my very judgmental attitude towards Church of England, Methodist, Catholic. So, I mean, obviously the difficult thing was like, so in the early days, I'd go and because I wanted relationship with it, and I'd go, and I'd love, so we'd go to a conference, 3-day conference, say organised by Partners in Harvest, what have you. And I would love lunchtime because you'd sit and you'd have conversations with guys and really share heart, and then because I was just fed up of services, and it'd be like, oh, not again. And I just struggled in that whole conference environment. But come lunchtime or coffee time, you could sit one-on-one with people that you're not seeing. And I realised that was the heart. That was really life-giving.
Yeah. And
then going into a service where you're kind of, somebody was preaching and telling you what to believe. Oh, that's not where I'm at anymore. So that was the lonely bit. And then feeling, I've got it wrong. And I'm, leading a bunch of people into wrongness. And so, but then you start to come across guys like yourself, Martin, this online possibility, and you realise it's happening worldwide.
Yeah.
So that gave a lot of strength and encouragement as well. But also, through the Father Heart stuff, I've been travelling around Europe a bit as part of the ministry team with a guy who takes this message of the Father's love to mainly Eastern Europe, Slovakia, Croatia, Bosnia, etc. So that's been good. So there's a good kind of, but then he's not where I'm at now either. So that's been a difficult one, kind of, and you go, and that's the hard thing. It's kind of desperately wanting to be able to buy into that because you love the guys, but just thinking, it's just not where my heart's at. And so I understand people who are in our church and it's happened, and someone said, do you know what, I feel God moving me on. It's not quite where my heart's at. And it is, heartbreaking because you've walked a journey with them, but I understand where they're at because that's how I felt. So I can say, well, we just want to bless you on your journey and encourage you. That's what families do, isn't it? If my son was living at home with me forever, I'd be like, on one level it'd be great, but on the other one you want to see him explore and have his own journey and his own stuff. So I'm aware that'll happen. So we have got a really good relationship with different churches in the town. So we do stuff together, and that's kind of based because it's relational and it's not theological. So we have got together, and so the whole aim is encouraging each other on their journey. So I think now the ability to meet people where they're at and hopefully understand where they're at a bit more, not expect them to be at where I'm at.
Yeah.
And not try try and get them to where I'm at, because that may never happen.
Sure.
But be able to say, yeah, where you're at, let's see the common ground. Don't get it right all the time, and everybody's quite busy. But I'm pretty sure that evangelical and Pentecostal, we've probably got a really bad reputation locally.
Yeah.
I think I haven't. To be honest, I'm not that bothered.
Yeah.
I mean, we did have somebody leave, quite sadly actually, and I knew this person had been struggling for ages with how we did things and the theology, and it's somebody who'd come from a 40 years of steep Pentecostalism, old school Pentecostalism, coupled with various childhood issues. So everything was stacked against them, and so everything that we're about, and it just didn't work. I mean, they were with us for years, and I always hoped the light's going to come on, and love them, and really struggling. And I just kind of said one day, I said, look, I just know you're struggling with all of this, and some of the people who are coming in are a bit wacky, and I said, so look, we're a family, and it was a Sunday morning in particular, and so I said, why not kind of find somewhere where you're perhaps more comfortable on Sunday morning, a Pentecostal service, but you're still part of the family, so come to all the other stuff like Bible study and all of those things, which were, but perhaps, if you're struggling on a Sunday, find that. But so I thought I was doing a really good thing, don't you? I thought, this is loving this person completely. I know you're struggling, and I'm not saying leave the church. I'll perish the thought. I was just saying, look, we're more fluid than that.
Yeah.
So find a service that more suits you. If you want an hour preaching from the Bible, which some do, bless you. But we're never going to go really that unless something radical changes. That's not what we're about here. So find that. But then you're still a part of us. So come to all the other stuff that we do, the art class that you do, the Bible study, the soaking nights, the what have you. And we need to be a bit more fluid about this. But what this person heard was, leave the church.
Wow.
So, and that really hurt, because I've gone out of my way and I even sent a letter afterwards saying, I know you think this, but can I just tell you again, that's not what I meant. It's not what I said. It's not what I feel at all. But obviously word got round that Terms of the Christian Fellowship tells people to leave the church.
Right. Let's not kid ourselves. That's a common thing that most churches probably tell people to do occasionally anyway. So most people that heard that probably thought, well, yeah, but it's a church.
I know. Yeah, that's it. So I don't get it right all the time. Or if I do, it's sometimes misinterpreted. Yeah. But as long as people know that's never our heart, and it is to be a safe place. And so that it hurts if people don't feel it is safe, But so in terms of other churches, we got on and do some stuff, but I suppose the relationship with the community is the strongest one that we have. And in this crisis, that's been even more strengthened. So a lot of people have, we've found a lot of people not coming to church. It's not about that, but so we're now running a food bank from the church. It's a little community group that's got together, and they contacted me, and so. Again, and it's just getting out of this idea that the church is this little group of people that meet together and have professed a faith. So for me, the boundaries are more open. It's wide. So I'll encourage anybody. And now my heart, I suppose, really is just to encourage other people's things. A lot of time, church, it's kind of, right, we've got this vision and we're going to build this. And in order to build this, we need your time, your money, your blah, blah, blah. So you buy into my vision as a church, and that's always been this kind of traditional model, if you like, especially among evangelical charismatic churches. And so you give your life to Jesus, but whatever that means, but the church as well. And for me, it's the other way around. It's kind of, so we don't have a vision, we don't have a plan, we don't have anything like that. It's just the individuals who come to the church and meet up with us, or people that we come across in the community. Well, how can we support you to build a kingdom together? Awesome. So just because someone's not professing a faith in Jesus doesn't mean to say they're not helping the poor and the needy. Sometimes much better than we did as a church. And so we can't do everything. So we'll encourage you and help you, and you can use our building to do that. So it's the walls are down now, really. And that's part of this whole deconstruction journey, to accept and love others and encourage them, whatever persuasion.
Well, it feels like you've got rid of, like, describing that, like, oh, we've got this vision, we're going to start a food bank or host the homeless or whatever, and we need your money, your time, your whatever. But we miss out the main thing, right? And most people don't, to be fair. Give them credit where credit's due. They're very open about what their purpose is. This is not to feed people that are hungry. This is to get people saved. We're feeding people so we can. And it's the same, it's like the people in the street in the high-vis jackets that are going to try and get you to sign up to give to Oxfam or something. And you spot them and you're like, oh, I know your agenda. I know you don't. And they're like, hi, how's your day? And you're like, you do not care about how my day is at all. You want me to sign this thing so I can, and bless them, they're doing their work and they've got a hard job. I wouldn't want to do it. But it is that thing of like, oh, I can tell there's an ulterior motive here. Even the person, I used to do like soup kitchen and stuff like that, and I used to hate doing it because I genuinely felt like these people know the reason I'm here is not because I want to feed them, not because I care. And I did on one level, but on another level, I was there to get their eternal souls saved, or whatever. And when you've got that worldview, I mean, hats off. It's a very honorable thing on some level. But on a flip side, when you come out of it, you're like, this just feels really perverse and a bit. As you were sharing that, and I'm fascinated because we mentioned Martin, and Martin is one of my favorite people because he's so funny. He's so militant. We talked about it. It's like he is passionate about this is a belief I see as toxic. So we could maybe use that as an example of like, a church running a soup kitchen to an end, an ulterior motive or whatever. And and that might be maybe one of the least kind of toxic things, because it's like, well, at the end of the day, people are getting fed, who cares, let them do it for a bad reason. It's like that thing of like, well, if they're not, if they're still doing something nice, fine, it's better than like doing something for a terrible motive and it's a terrible thing. But Martin is very outspoken about this is a toxic belief, we need to get rid of this belief, we need to find I mean, he'll go into a Facebook group called like I don't know, we hate free will Christians, or I don't know, and he'll go in and go, I'm a free will Christian, let's do this, and it just has a royal rumble with like a group of 3,000 people or something. Or he'll join the Facebook group that's like eternal conscious torment is the only way to read the Bible, and he'll join it and then have a fight with 6,000 people. And I'm like, Martin, how do you have the strength for this? He's like, no, but this is hurting people are hurt, and it causes some profound hurt long term. And I think this is what sparked my thought of this movement that's starting the Do Better Church, and it's calling the church and going, look, there's some of these beliefs, your belief about homosexuality, your belief about trans people, your belief about hell, it's causing phenomenal hurt. We're causing one of the things they were talking about recently was this wonderful person that committed suicide because they went to their priest and said, hey, I'm gay. I think they were 14 and said, I'm gay. And they were like, well, bury that right down. Never talk about this to anyone. Don't tell your parents. Don't tell your friends, or they'll know that you're evil and wrong. And maybe you can work to change that. And I don't know the full extent of the story, but ultimately she, I think it was about a decade later, committed suicide because of all this stuff. And that is not rare. Suicide rates in the church of people that are LGBTQ versus suicide rates of people who are not in the church who are LGBTQ, sevenfold. You're seven times more likely to commit suicide. And so we look at that and you go, yeah, maybe Do Better Church is a solid hashtag there. Like that sounds like a good call. And so I guess that's something that is in my mind of like, you seem to be aware of some of these beliefs that really were holding you back, were hurting you. You've helped people that have gone on these journeys. You're friends with someone like Martin who's like, I'm gonna change the world, this cannot keep going on. As a church, as a community, as a leader, did you feel that kind of pull to be and as someone that was such an ardent evangelist as well, do you feel this call to try and help people change, or how do you approach that? Because I think there's different models as well. I probably take in some areas and contexts, I am quite aggressive and go after things. In other areas, I'm very much like, people are going to change when they're going to change, and whatever. How do you guys kind of like go about that? Is that something that you actively try and deconstruct these kind of concepts for people and help people on that journey, or what does that look like for you guys?
Do you know what? I've never set out, I don't think, to actively do it. Occasionally I will, and it's just sometimes this thing comes on you and you just think, I'm going to have a go at that, because it is, you feel mad about it, and you do it. I think, I suppose most of the time, my especially when chatting to, doing a lot with people who have no church background whatsoever, and it's just, I suppose, listening to where they're at. I remember one preacher said, got everybody in the room to say, right, who here believes Jesus is the answer? And they all banged their hand up, good Christians. And he says, right, what's the question? And they're all like, what do you mean? Well, what's the question? He said, well, you all go out there and telling people Jesus is the answer, or this. But people aren't asking that question. So find out what questions they are asking, where they're at, and move them from that place. So somebody who comes in, agnostic 8-year-old guy who comes in and he is lonely and he wants a cup of coffee and he's got no one to talk to. A very intelligent guy, loves to chat, and that's what he wants. He wants community, to belong to. At this moment in time, initially, he doesn't care about God. God doesn't exist for him. And so, I always remember the Aesop's fable as well. The old story, the sun and the wind. You know that one, don't you? Where they have a competition to see who can blow this guy's coat off. Who's the first to take his coat off? And the wind comes, I'll do it, no problem. And he blows and blows and blows. And the harder he blows, the more the guy just wraps the coat round himself. And then the sun comes, just gently warms the guy and takes it off. And there's quite a nice lesson in that. It's not always works. Sometimes people will respond to it's just knowing when and how. So our agnostic friend, so he just said, now I want you to know, he said, I'm an atheist. He brought his daughter initially to church, a messy church we're doing, little kids things. He said, I want you to know, he pulled me to one side. He said, I want you to know, Ollie, I'm an atheist. And he said, but I want to ask you a question. He said, and you are never, ever going to convert me. I want you to know that straight away. I said, well, that's great, because that takes pressure off me, and I don't want to anyway. And he said, there's something about your place that I enjoy. I enjoy coming to it, and so I would like to keep coming, but I don't want to be a hypocrite. And I know you're a church. I want you to know that I'm never going to be converted. I said, we don't want you. Just come and enjoy our company. And that's it. And if you try and convert that guy and try and, so tell me about your beliefs, right, let me argue you out of that belief. So you say you're an atheist, but, well, here's a list of why, well, he'd have gone, I reckon.
Yeah.
Sort of a couple of months into being with us, he shares once, and he said, I was in local town and gone to visit somebody, and I found myself outside the church, and I was just praying, and I was saying, you've got to say, hang on a minute, you were what? You were praying and talking, and just very gradually, he's just slipping into this relationship. And then he was just sharing, I was in the house, and he sort of worried about his memory and this, that, and the other, and something had happened, and he kind of said, I shook my hand at the big fella, I said, you're having a laugh with me, aren't you? And he felt the answer come back, of course I am, son. And he's suddenly he's hearing bits from God, and that shouldn't work, but that was right for him. Others need that cut and thrust off, but for him that was the right approach, and I think that's probably the right approach for most. Just let them come and belong, and meet them where they're at. So if they're struggling, you'll know if someone's struggling because they'll be emotionally wrought about something. Generally, it's cognitive behavioral therapy, isn't it? Your emotions are often based on, not always, but often based on a faulty thinking. So when you come across that, you can sit down with somebody and say, so what are your thoughts about that? And it's non-threatening, and that whether it's, mine loves it, doesn't he? I hate confrontation.
Success, right? I mean, it's not every person he talks to by any means, but he does have success. And I'm like,
and it's a gifting, and it's like, like the Apostle Paul, he went help, people, and that was him, and one of the days, like Reinhard Bonnke, that was him, it's not me. And I think you just have to enjoy being us. And like you said earlier, I think what people most dislike is hypocrites, and they can sense when someone's got an ulterior motive. And the thing with mine, no ulterior motive, you'll see. I'm going to tell you, and but Martin's also got that capacity to do it one-on-one in a gentle way as well, and people who are genuinely seeking, he'll help them. For me, it's I'll do that, but I've never purposely gone out to think, because for me, yeah, good question. You got me. No, I've never thought about that.
It's
and I've
intriguing to
never,
me how different people approach it.
The approach has always been to try and draw out of people what's in there, if you like.
Yeah.
And to just encourage people that, you can hear from God, you are loved. And because we're a small fellowship, if we were a fellowship of like 500 or something like that, it would be very different. You'd have to have like a set service. So being small is really good on that, because it's all, you can do that. You can, on a Sunday morning, you can have any number of people sharing and, what have you, and going with the flow. If you're a bigger church, you can't do that, or you're not set up for that. And, so it works for us.
Yeah.
And I suppose I'm more of that. I suppose what I base it on was that when I became a pastor, I basically had no idea what I was doing. And it will surprise you to know I still have no idea what I'm doing. Genuinely, I don't. I haven't got a clue. And but the pastor before me, he could do everything. He was a trained counsellor. Right. He'd been a pastor in this church and that church, and everybody looked to him. He was a big strong guy. Here, his faith was just like unshakable. He was like the opposite of me, virtually. Quite what he saw in me, only God knows. And when I first became a pastor, I ran around like a headless chicken trying to be him. I genuinely did. And I had to fix anybody's problems. And then he was struggling. I thought, I'm going to counsel you, even though I had no idea, no counselling training, and this, that, and the other. And it was not working at all. It took me about 2 years to realise that A, I wasn't him, and B, there are other ways of doing it other than traditional models. Like, I kept the church exactly like, initially, pastor before, and that's part of honouring as well, isn't it? And kept it like Toronto might have wanted it, with various bits and bobs, and then eventually you realise, no, I'm me, and we're us, and then gradually over a period of kind of not burnout, but just thinking, this is rubbish, I'm not helping it, and it was like I just stopped trying. And it was like the less, this sounds weird, but the less it sounds really lazy, but it's great. It was like the less I did, the more I saw God doing. And it was as if, and then it was like people would just be coming and saying, I was really struggling with different things. And then they'd just come and they'd say, oh yeah, just this happened. Or, I was just watching something this on telly and that happened. Or this other pastor, I went to this meeting and that was sorted out. And initially I was like, what do you mean you went to another meeting? And, and it was like, well, I can't help you, other people. And then I just thought, God, the less I did, it was like, and then I'd take the reins up again. And it was as if God's activity stopped. I know it sounds really weird, and it wasn't like that. It was like the more I tried to influence people and do that, it was as if, almost in my mind's eye, I could see God standing back with a smile on his face, a benevolent, loving smile to his little boy. Okay, you get on with it, and I'm here when you come to the end of it again. And it was like that. I'd take the reins again. I'd be like trying to do that and trying to do that and trying to start that up and trying to start that up. This ain't working. Okay, I'm going to do nothing. And then it'd be like, and so that's been a bit of the journey as well. Yeah. But that's me just kind of learning, if you like, to stand back and just let God do it, because he knows better than, he's done it in my life. He knew exactly the right time to give me that encounter, bring that person to me, bring that bit of scripture to life, all of those things. So why is he not doing it with, and he is. It's sometimes I get in the way of that. And I try and help too much and try and convince people that their beliefs are, whatever it might be, when Father's just thinking, what's the point? I'm going to give them an encounter tomorrow, which is going to blow them out of the water. So you're wasting your breath on at the moment. But that's just, and I always say, this is just me. This is just me. And so I admire guys like Marty who can do that. I don't like confrontation. Never have done really. I suppose more of a peacemaker or a coward, one of the two. And I just don't. And I'll do it if necessary, but I shy away from it completely. So I'd rather let God do it all, because he's better than me.
Do you
And that sounds real cop-out, doesn't it?
No, it's just really, really good. Would you say a lot of your church has joined you on your journey? Or do you think that there's, because I know you've talked about people being in different places, and that's just natural, even for people that are deconstructing. I mean, I run a deconstruction network, and it's like, okay, everyone that's deconstructing, jump on this one website, and then you realize, bloody hell, you're all different, and none of you can make friends with each other. You know? So, everyone's different anyway. But would you say a lot of your congregation have kind of come on that journey with you?
I would say, because it's such a, like I said, such a lovely yet bizarre mix of people. So there are quite a lot that just are not interested in theology at all. You know, sort of the, where am I going when I die? What did the cross mean? Is tithing New Testament appropriate? Right. They just don't care. But where is God in my everyday life? That's important to them. You know, I'm struggling. I need people to pray with me or whatever. So there's kind of that who don't really bother too much about the theology, and that tends to be more those who never come from a church background. It doesn't matter as much to them. And then you've got those who, and I would say the majority of the core group who've been with from the beginning of my journey of deconstruction, almost, apart from the one person that left and the other one that left, but in a good way, who just, and it was more, they just felt that Father was leading them on a new adventure, put it like that. So still great friends and could, connect with each other and blah, blah, blah. So I would say they were the sort of two. Wow. But one, it wasn't so much not going on the journey, it was more or less, I just feel a call to another adventure that's not here type thing. And then, so possibly the newer ones that have come like this past a couple, we've not really sat down with them and said, where are you at with it all? Because it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. I love them. I think they love me. I get so much from them wisdom-wise, and their heart to serve the church is just incredible. And sometimes it feels like if you sit down and have a discussion on theology with them, the danger is of ruining that relationship. And I'd rather have a relationship with them than get into a theological debate on
ensure things. We're on the same page. Or
because it doesn't matter. And Jenny, like my wife, I'm doing that as if she sat there. No, she isn't.
The ethereal wife I have.
The ethereal wife. It's like Del Boy. You never saw his wife, did you? For your American listeners, Del Boy was a British sitcom star. Her indoors. And there'll be things that I, believe and are convinced of that she might not. But who cares? We love each other, and I think for me that trumps everything. Yeah, it really does. A community of love, and we can get too. There are theologies that really are harmful. Hugely harmful. I've experienced them, and obviously I want people to be free. If I could say anything, that if you cut me open, it was for freedom that Christ set us free, not to be subject to the slavery of theology. And it can be a freeing thing. It can be a slavery. Deconstructed theology can be a slavery as much as ordinary, theology, if you like. If it binds you and then sets you against and makes you judge somebody else who hasn't got to where you are, that can be just as harmful.
It's just the other side of the same coin.
It's just the other side of the same coin, really. Yeah, and that's probably my guilty thing over the years of doing this, because sometimes when you're feeling alone and you're feeling, it's natural to try and make yourself feel better by pulling down somebody else's belief systems. I get that, and I've done it, and I continue to do it. Like I'll sometimes denigrate another church because they're not like ours, and that's usually when I'm not feeling great about myself, or that is the reality, and it's a human thing to pull something else down to make yourself feel better, but and that's not helpful. It's not, because we're not all in the same boat, somebody said, but we are all in the same sea. And everyone does it differently. Everyone's had different revelations. I'm only here where I am because God's shown me things, and if he's not shown others things, I've never understood why. he seems to be showing loads of people all these same things.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm in contact with people from Eastern Europe, and I think, oh, you're getting this kind of stuff as well. And they're saying, well, how have you got to this point? And it seems to be happening worldwide, and yet others stay entrenched. And I've never understood why. And sometimes it is that once you're in a system that keeps you, like I was, to break out of that and to have the courage to say, do you know, I just don't believe that anymore. I can't get that. It's quite hard. What were we on about?
Well, it was a very multifaceted approach to us talking about how much focus on things like abuse.
So love and relationship
problematic
key
things, and
so love and relationship key. And obviously now the twain shall meet. I mean, I say Martin will come up with some stuff, and I'm like, what? Whoa, that's too much, or that's. But usually it's, I've not come across that before.
Sure.
And I think then you've got two options, haven't you? You either just say, well, he's a wacko, or he's a heretic, or, well, that's, or you go, wow, that's interesting. I love to learn. That's interesting.
Yeah.
I'll have a look at that. I'll see about that. And whatever it is, even if I end up disagreeing, I love the guy. We have fun together. And I respect his journey. Yeah. Even if it's always going to be slightly, but his journey is going to be slightly different.
Yeah.
But it's about, being together and just, if you say you've got it all right, just pack in now. Some of the stuff I believe now, I might not I can't see myself going back. I really, and all the way along this journey, I've always had this kind of prayer. Look, if this is all rubbish, you've got to show me. My heart is not, right, I've decide one day, right, I'm going to throw all that out of the water, and now I'm going to embrace this because this sounds like fun. It's never been like that. It's always been a measured, well, you've got to show me. If you're real, you've got to show, if this is real, show me. Right, I've got that revelation. You're giving me this thought, but I'll weigh that up. So it's not just been a gung-ho, right, scrap all that, let's embrace all of that. And I've always prayed that, if I'm wrong, not that there's right and wrong, but, if I'm believing some real rubbish here and it's harmful for me and my walk with God and the people that I'm with, then just show me, give me some alternative. Many times I've prayed, I don't want all of this. It's too much hassle. I love to go back to, but then I wouldn't and I couldn't.
No, I know, it's impossible.
You can't, can you? But there'll be things, and I've always said that, there'll be things, I'll have more encounters and more experience of God that'll make me realise, I had a really narrow view of God back in 2020. Yeah. Remember when you talked to Phil Drysdale, you were saying that? Well,
you go back and listen to this or watch this and be like, oh God, why did I say that?
Yeah, that's right. Oh no.
And someone that puts that material on the internet forever, trust me, when I understand that. Yeah.
But as long as we always say, look, this is where I'm at now, and it is. And I remember you saying that, and it was great. And I warm to that because, we're on a journey and it's fluid. Yeah. It really is. And if I know everything there is to know about God now, and if I know all the theology there is to know now, and if I've got my interpretation of Scripture exactly right now, oh, come on. Well, that's it.
If this is it,
yeah, if this is it, well, so
maybe join the Flying Spaghetti Monster group. Actually, after all, that's the end point. That's it.
So that's my heart. It's always been
wonderful.
Never asked for any of this ever. And it's come to me, and we're just going with it.
That's usually the best type of person to put in charge of anything, is the person that doesn't want it. So that's what God was waiting for. I'm never going to be a pastor. He's like, God, found one. Excellent. I found two. That's awesome. Well, Ollie, thank you so much for spending so much time chatting. It's been really great.
You know what, Phil? Love this. I was really nervous because I don't do this. I never preach, I never teach. It's just like odd sharing here and there. So I've loved sharing with you. Really,
it's been absolutely fantastic. You should do it more. Well, we should have you on at some point, and we'll not just talk your story. We'll just banter about who knows what.
That'd be really great, actually. So, I can't wait to see you in person again. We'll fix up a time for you to come over.
Yeah. Once we're allowed to be hanging out, it'll be good to see you again.
Yeah.
I'll come over.
We can meet at IKEA and have a breakfast together or something like that.
That sounds good.
Yeah.
All right, love you, my friend. Well, I'll catch you later.
You too, man. Yeah, bless you. See you, Phil.
Bye.
Ta-da.